The purpose of this tutorial is to introduce you to After Effects, which is going to be the program that we use for creating motion graphics. We're going to talk about the interface, we're going to talk about the workflow, and we're going to go ahead and get right into some of the different things that we can do with our footage or images inside After Effects. I'm going to go ahead and open up an empty project and give you a little bit of a tour of the interface that we have here. At the top corner we've got a toolbar, and this is going to allow us to access different tools by clicking on the keys. Again, if they've got the little notches in the bottom corner, that means that there are additional tools that relate to them contained underneath, and you would just hold down and expose those. We also have tooltips that pop up. Those are the little rectangular yellow boxes that contain the information about the name of the tool as you hover over it with your mouse, and it also gives you the keyboard shortcut for if you want to access the tool that way. Right now they're all grayed out because we don't have a composition. Once we open up a composition, we'll be able to access those and talk about them a little bit more. The next thing that we'll talk about is the project panel, and the project panel is going to be basically where we have all of the connections to the footage or the images or the audio files, all of the different components that we either connect to our project that are contained on the computer hard drive, or the things that we create within After Effects for use in our project. We've got a composition panel that's located over here. This is going to be where we are able to see what it is that we're actually building, make some modifications, make some adjustments, lots of different ways to look at things inside After Effects, and we'll talk about those as we go. We also have the timeline down here. We've got the timeline panel, and then After Effects actually calls this the time graph over here, where we actually see our different elements, but we'll basically refer to this whole area down here as the timeline as we work, and that's basically because I'm used to working with video, and that's what I'm used to doing. We have a couple of panels that are grouped together over here. We have info, which just gives us some information about whatever it is that we have selected, and then we have an audio panel behind here that gives us some information about how much volume we have on a relative basis inside whatever elements we're working with inside our projects here. And we'll talk more about these as we go. We have a preview panel over here, and this will be how we can control some of the different ways for looking at our work as we're building it, and we'll talk more about that obviously as we go. We've got an effects and presets panel here, and this is where we're going to be able to access the different sort of things that After Effects lets us attach to our footage to modify how it looks or how it behaves, and we'll talk about those obviously as we go. Behind here we've got character, and this is for ways to modify the text that we add to our piece. Down here we've got paragraph, which is again referring to the text, and tracker, which will be something that we work with in a more advanced level. So this is going to be different ways that we can stabilize our footage or track different elements within the footage to increase the power of what we're actually changing and modifying and adding and things like that. So that's the general tour. We're going to talk a little bit more about customizing it later as we work with some different things within our work. Just a couple of tips in terms of the things that we're able to do. If we have our mouse and we hover over the different areas, there's a shortcut for increasing the size of each of the panels. So for example, if I want to view whatever is in my composition at the largest screen size possible, I can hit the tilde key or the grav key, and that is located over on my keyboard anyway, on the far left hand side near the escape key. And if I hit it again, then it goes back to regular size. So for example, if I'm doing something in the timeline and I really want to be able to see everything, I can hit that accent or grav key and jump that up into full size, and we'll show you that more as we go, but just it's a little tip of the day for you there. Basically what we're going to do to start our project is to import files into our project here. And so if we go to File and import. You can see that we've got a couple of different options. There's also a keyboard shortcut for importing individual file or importing multiple files. If I import a file, you can see I have a folder here called After Effects Sample Files, and if I want to import a video file, we can see that we have the little video icon there. There's a different icon for an audio file. This is the icon for my Photoshop file. This Photoshop file actually has layers, and we'll talk about how that can help us as we go. Then we've got a single JPEG file, and we have a file that has some multiple layers as well, and then another QuickTime movie that's actually an animation of this Illustrator file. So a couple different kinds of things that we want to do. If I just import the, let's see, we'll import First Look. If I click Open, then it's going to import that particular file into my project. And you can see that up here in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, we have a little thumbnail of the piece, and we can take a look at the information about it. It gives us our dimensions, gives us our colors, it gives us the type of footage, and the standard of the audio that it's working with. We also have some information here. We've got the name of the file. We see that it's a QuickTime. We can see its duration, size, the file path. So if we're looking for where that particular file is located, we can have that access there. If I go to import multiple files, I can use my Shift key to select all of them. I'm going to use my Command key to deselect First Look because that's already imported. And you can see that we've got importing everything as footage, and we'll keep that for now, but then we're going to come back and redo some things momentarily here. So if we import them all, so if I take a look at what I've got here inside my project, I'm going to click on my Photoshop file and drag it down here to my composition. And there's a couple things that's happening when I do that. When I create a new composition with my Photoshop file, what it's going to do is use the size of the Photoshop file as the size of the composition. And sometimes that works in your favor, but sometimes it doesn't. You can see here that my Photoshop file is 1536 by 1024. And my composition file is created in that same size. So if I hit the space bar, and I've got my file here, and basically I have a Photoshop document that is multi-layered, but After Effects right now is playing it as if it is one solid image. And what I want to do is re-import the file so that After Effects recognizes the individual layers of the document. And so if I do File and Import and File, we'll go to Steps, and you'll see that instead of importing it as footage, I will import it as a composition. And this will make a big difference, and we'll show you. So if we click OK, and then we'll say Import Kind Composition, and we'll talk more about these specifics as we go, but we'll just sort of get into what we're doing now. So now we have steps imported. We also have a little bin here that tells me we've got these individual elements. And if I double click on steps 2, you can see that now we've got each of the individual pieces of the file. And if I turn on and off the visibility by using the little eyeball that's over here, we can see how each of those different elements exists within this particular document now. And hopefully you can see that that's different than the way that it works inside my steps where the Photoshop was imported as footage. So this gives you a lot of power in flexibility and being able to modify how still images are basically integrated into a motion graphics sequence. If I jump over to step 2 and I highlight each of the elements, and you can see that if I click on one of the pieces, the entire frame of the composition is active. And that's because when I imported it as a composition, I didn't have it retain layer sizing. So we're going to go ahead and go back and do that now. Import file. and steps again, and this time we'll do composition and retain layer sizes. And we'll click open, we'll click OK. And now we've got steps 3. And so if I double click on steps 3 to open it up here, now you can see that when I click on a soldier, and we'll just turn off the visibility of those layers, we have a bounding box that is around the size of the soldier himself. And so if I do the other one, soldier with hat, and if I do tennis ball, and if I do steps, steps is the image that is basically filling the frame of the composition, so that just makes sense that that would be what we're looking for. But basically that shows you the difference in when you're importing still image, like a multi-layered Photoshop or Illustrator document into After Effects, you want to make sure to select that composition and retain layer sizes if you're going to move the different elements around, because that's going to make a big difference as we go.